It's a high-tech conversation.
And a low-tech topic.
Live on the World Wide Web via Zoom. Bench Talk 101.
Welcome to Bench Talk 101. Tonight we've got Rusty, who's going to talk about his first project, which was a canoe. A kayak, shall I say. So over to you, Rusty.
Thank you, Paul. Do I need to mute people, or people are going to mute themselves? I'm going to start sharing, and you guys can figure out.
Okay, that's actually a really good point. So what we're going to do is we'll allow Rusty to do his presentation, and if anybody wants to ask any questions, if we can ask them at the end. Thank you very much.
Okay, let me know if... Okay, I think my slides should be shown. So
Yeah.
it is my pleasure to give the fourth talk to this group. I don't know why I'm still being allowed to talk, but Paul and I talked about, and I think maybe Sean as well, that it would be a good idea to start a series of talks on the topic of my first project. And so this is going to be one of those. My first project was a skin on frame kayak. And this gentleman in the middle here is the gentleman by the name of Harvey Golden, who's in the audience today. So if you have any questions at the end about kayaks, you can ask him. Harvey has published 2 books and working on a third about kayaks. He does work on historical kayaks, which include technical drawings and histories, wonderful stories. Those are specifically historical indigenous kayaks. So the first book, I believe, was Kayaks of Greenland, and the second one was Kayaks of Alaska, and the third is going to be Kayaks of Canada. So I met Harvey in Spain, and then we went to visit him, and I learned that what he does, and that he has a museum of kayaks as well. So he's this guy in a cap. This is my daughter and Lisa, my ex-wife. And those 2 kayaks behind him were the kayaks that we used. And I thought it was amazing that somebody can just build a boat by themselves. Again, I have done no woodworking at the time. And so Harvey was very encouraging and said, look, if Inuits in Greenland can build kayaks, and Greenland has no trees, and so they use driftwood and whalebone. So if Inuits in Greenland can do it, then you can go to Home Depot and buy a drill and build a kayak yourself. And by the way, when gentlemen in Greenland build the kayaks, they use them to hunt for whale and seal, and those attack back half the time. So, and there's a certain level of penalty to being dunked in Arctic water. Nonetheless, so this is the kayak that Harvey convinced me would be the easiest one to build, because this kayak, this is again a replica of a historical kayak, and I'll show you a technical drawing in a minute. This one is was put together with nails, and so there's no steam bending involved other than the combing. Combing is that entrance, which I didn't know how to do steam bending, so I didn't do that. So I took some pictures of this one, and you can see, I'll show you a few. So there's some lashings here that you can put a second pedal into. It's kind of useful to have a second pedal when you go in a kayak, because if you lose a pedal, you up the creek without a pedal. So it's useful to have extra one. You'll notice that there's stitching of the skin on top, and the stitching actually is done with dental floss. At least that's what Harvey told me. That's what I used, and it sounded like a good idea. There's a twine that sorry, not twine. What's the right term? Harvey, what's the right term? Is that not twine?
A twine or just a heavier line.
Thank you. A
Yeah.
heavier line that you tighten the skin with nylon skin. And so I took those pictures and got home, and then this is the picture of the inside of this kayak that Harvey had. And you can see the nails, yeah, that holding it. I was actually going to use screws because it was easier. And then this is a picture of a different kayak that's, I guess, much more common, where the ribs are steam bent and then the stringers are lashed onto it with rope or lashing. That was too advanced for me, so I didn't do that. And then he sent me this technical drawing. So this is the drawing that shows up in one of his books. I guess Kayaks of Canada, I believe.
Yeah, if I may, that's actually published in Eugene Arima's 1987 Inuit Kayaks in Canada. So
Oh,
it's his drawing. I've since taken the lines off and surveyed the original myself, though. But that's Eugene Arima's drawing.
thank you. Yes. But anyway, so the information I had was encouragement from Harvey, this technical drawing, pictures I took, and a lot of audacity of stupidity, I guess. And so it has all the measurements. I had to kind of figure out what it means. And I figured that these numbers here are with different distances from the stem being, sorry, right here. And so I went to Home Depot and got some pine, and they didn't have 14-foot clear pine, so I got some knotty pine, and got home and started working on it in the garage. So I really tried to figure out how to do it, and I looked at some YouTube videos, and it seemed pretty easy, but there was some trial and error. And again, there's not much to lose, so I figured I'll give it a try. I very quickly realized that I cannot work in the garage in Atlanta in the summer because it was just way too hot. So I brought it into my office inside the house, and this is where I built it. I did have a pool saw at the time. I'll be mentioning what kind of tools I used, and some clamps. And so here's the stem that's attached to I guess you start by building the top deck, and so those would be gunnels, the sides on the top, and then added the stringer, or I don't know, but then there's this part called the masique. This is where your knees go, and kind of as you pedal, they push into this um, masique. And what I really struggled with, I gotta go back to the technical drawing. You'll notice that the bend in the back is much more pronounced than in the front, and I really had trouble bending the pine into such a sharp curve. Right now, it's not sharp enough. And eventually I called Harvey and said, dude, I can't do it. What's going on there? And he said, oh, okay. So here's what you do. You have to cut some curves into it. And I said, what's curves? And he said, well, just take a saw and cut a few curves into the sides. And it did work amazingly. Again, so those stretchers are done, or deck beams are done with attached with screws. And once you have the top done, you kind of turn it upside down, or the top deck, the deck. And oh yeah, so I actually went back to Home Depot and bought a plane. This is the first plane I bought. It's all plastic. Um, and then you add gunnels to it. So gunnels, and then these parts will be ribs. I guess I also had a table saw, so I was able to get those done. So you turn the boat upside down and you add I don't know what those would be called, just some boards to create the space to elevate the keel, and then you attach the keel to the stem and the stern, and then in between this, so this is just a bridle joint. In between those, so you have your gunnels done, you have the stretchers on the deck, and now you have the keel or keelson, and under this you add the ribs. And so here's an example of how you add the ribs. You basically, what I was doing at least, um, literally follow the curvature of the gunnels and measure out the distances. I wasn't measuring anything. I was just adding the pieces. And then once they're in place, attach them with screws and cut them with a handsaw. And so slowly but surely, I was able to get all those done. And let's see. Oh yeah, I had another saw. Look at that. I have another saw. And so at the end, yeah, this is kind of what it looks like. So um, again, just screws and pine. So then I brought this boat into the garage because I was going to finish it, and I wasn't going to finish it. Put polyurethane on this in the office. There's a couple more pieces that go onto it. There's two. There it is. There's two boards that useful when you get into the kayak. So you get to sit on them as you slide in, and there's those center pieces. Again, I forget the term.
Deck stringers.
Deck stringers. Thank you, Harvey. And then there was a question of, okay, so I put the polyurethane on it, so it's waterproof. Then there was the question of how do I do the combing? So Harvey's combing was done. It's a steam bent piece of oak. I've never done that. I didn't even know where to find air dried oak to do that. So instead, I just made a trapezoid out of pine and put it together with glue and screws, and it worked surprisingly well. So then Harvey also told me who to call to get the nylon. He has the Connect. And the gentleman sent me the nylon as I was instructed to request. And then you just stitch it onto the boat. You stitch it onto the stem and the stern and kind of stretch it a little bit. And then tie it together with this heavier line. So right now you can see that the top is tightened. You can see that black line in the middle. That's the view of the bottom of the kayak. Now it's all pretty nicely stretched. You'll see that there was quite a bit of folds in the top of the boat in the nylon. And then I've added the combing, and so you have to kind of cut out the piece of nylon around the combing and then stitch the combing onto the boat. Again, there's me demonstrating how it's supposed to work. Notice that I do have the personalized flotation device, or PFD. And the reason I put it is not because I'm scared of drowning in my garage, but because I want to make sure that I can actually fit into it with that PFD on. I have since had a friend who's 6'4" use that boat, and he was very uncomfortable in it. I'm actually very comfortable with this, but I'm not 6'4". So that's the boat before I put the finish on it. And so again, I called Harvey and I said, "Hey, what do I do now? Like, how do I make this nylon waterproof? And do I need to use epoxy?" And he said, "No, just use the polyurethane, and if it fails, just put more polyurethane, and don't worry about it." So this HG here is the dedication to Harvey. That stands for Harvey Golden, for all of his wisdom and encouragement. Oh yeah, so once you have a kayak, you need to make a pedal or buy a pedal. I decided to make a pedal. And again, Harvey sent me some drawings of Greenland pedals that are slightly different from the one that I made. Notice I'm using clear pine here. I actually want to pay the big bucks. And so I laminated 3 pieces. I cut out the big chunks on the bandsaw. And this is the first time I got to use a spoke shape. I didn't have a draw knife at the time. So I kind of see the direct evolution from this pedal to my love of chair making. That was a lot of fun making this pedal. It took longer because I only had a spoke shape and not a draw knife, but it really enjoyed the process. Look at those shavings. Yeah, so as some of you might know, I do make spoke shapes. That's not the one that I made. I believe that's Kunst, the cheapest one I could find. So then came the day to launch it. It was actually a present for Lissa for her birthday, and I decided I should be the one to test it first. And this is a somewhat precarious way of getting into the kayak. So you put the pedal across the back. Remember those 2 boards that you can sit on, and then you sit on this and slide in. Again, Harvey taught me that. I should also mention that I was concerned about learning things from Harvey because he's like a world champion in kayak rolls. So he's very comfortable rolling the kayak. I'm not. But I didn't have to. There's my kid. She was very excited about this too. And so once I knew that it does float and it is watertight, I let my kid try it, and it was good times. And then another thing that happened on that day, as we were pedaling around, taking turns, there was a practice of a dragon boat team. So this is a canoe with 22 people in it. And one of the guys there was really excited about it. And I said, you know, I'm going to be building another one for me. So why don't you come over and we'll build you one at the same time? And so he did. So this is the boat that you saw. This is the boat that I'm building, and this is the boat that my friend Vise building. You're gonna see his pictures in a minute. Couple of things became clear when we started this. This is Vise cutting. Vise has never done any woodworking. Like he didn't know how to read the measuring tape. Another thing that I learned is that Vise only had 2 days to build the boat. So this is Friday, we're starting, and he has to launch it on Sunday. So those were 2 long days, but it turns out that you can do it in, I believe we spent 28 hours. I very quickly abandoned building my boat and started helping him with his boat, but he did most of the work himself under my, you know, but at this point I have so much experience. I already built one and it floats. And so there he is stitching his kayak. I'm made sure to order all the materials ahead of time. This is actually the box of floss that he's holding, in case you thought I was joking about that being dental floss. Very proud of stitching his boat. There it is. This is on evening of Saturday, so the second day. We didn't do those long stem and stern. I don't remember whose idea that was. And then the next day he launched it. So I find it this project being very interesting for two reasons. One, it's now that I'm thinking back on this, this was 8 years ago. I'm not sure I would recommend starting as a first woodworking project building a kayak, but at the same time, why not? I think the cost was everything was under $200. Um, Now you know you can do it in under 30 hours. And if you're going to do it, then the one thing that I'm going to stop sharing and just to end this presentation, we'll share a few words of wisdom. If you're going to do it, I would recommend going on either Harvey's website or maybe both. And those are in chat. Paul share them. There's Brian Schultz who teaches online classes in building kayaks and canoes, and he's got a ton of information, hours of video instruction. His kayaks are more sophisticated than this one. They're not put together with screws, first of all. He actually recommends using a two-part polyurethane that has UV protection. And I think the courses are like $150. So if you're interested in building a boat in your house or in the garage, I would recommend that you go and look on their information. Again, Harvey is here, so he'll be able to answer questions as well. And with that said, I will be happy to take your questions.
So if anybody wants to ask any questions, please raise your hands.
Harvey, you also have to raise your hand if you want to ask questions.
Oh, okay.
But you don't have to raise your hand if you want to answer the questions.
Right.
We're coming to this uncomfortable moment where
And
we realize
no,
nobody
we've
has
got
questions.
plenty. So we'll first go to Chester.
Hey, Chester.
Hello there. Very nice presentation.
Thank you.
Very
How you doing? Are you done with the flood?
well, we're done with the flood, but we're not done with the repairs. The roof still has damage, and we have trees that have to be removed, and a stone wall rebuilding. And but this is the second part of the hurricane, which is dealing with the insurance company. And that's
lovely.
actually fairly close to being as difficult as getting through the hurricane, but we do a day at a time. So very nice.
Thank you.
I think it's fascinating. But as you were doing the presentation, several questions came to mind. So I'll give them to you one at a time, and you can answer it. First, when I first looked at the boats with your ex-wife and everyone on the pier, it seemed to me that that was a flat-topped boat that was in the water, as opposed to the kayak that you.
There were 3 in there. Yeah.
Yeah, and so what I wonder is, what is the definition of a kayak as opposed to a canoe or another flat-bottom boat? Is it just that it's single-manned, or
No, it doesn't have to be single. Harvey, I'm gonna try, and then you can tell us that I was wrong. My
Okay.
understanding of a kayak is that the top is covered, unlike the canoe, and you use a pedal, which is a two-sided, unlike an oar. All right, Harvey, am I wrong? Wrong? Where am I wrong?
Oh, you're right in that you are wrong.
Thank you.
Um, it gets really complicated. Technically,
boy.
one might say that a kayak is a type of canoe, but canoe generally means any small craft that you can paddle on either side of. But there are kayaks in the Arctic that are completely open, and they are
Then those
referred
are canoes.
well, we would call them canoes, but the Inuit terms for those, for the people that use them, they call them kayak also. And
Oh.
in much of Alaska, they use single blade paddles, which we generally would refer to them as canoe paddles. So even a kayak paddle can have one blade or two blades.
So in other words, the Inuits are wrong.
Well, you're wrong. No, it just gets really complicated, all the terminology. But if you look at a dictionary from the 1800s, the one thing that
Like you do.
well, as one does, they all describe kayaks as being covered with skin. So that is pretty much an essential definition of at least what was historically a kayak.
Now, do you think that they're referring to actual skin of an animal versus just the innocuous term skin that we use to skin a boat or to?
Right. Back then, it would have been just an animal. Canvas covered kayaks started coming in around the turn of the century, 1900s, and became more popular as animal hides were used for other things, first for sale to Southerners, and canvas or nylon became more usable. But in the original definition, it's usually described as a sealskin covered kayak. They also covered them with sea lion or caribou or even beluga.
So they were stitching those different skins together.
Different skins together. Yeah.
In order to get a large enough piece.
Exactly. Yeah, you'd have to sew many of them end to end. I've covered one of mine with deer skin, and I had to sew 4 deer skin end to end, and then a 5th to patch in across the deck.
Well, on that fitting part, since you're using nylon, what I noticed is that the front of the boat appeared to be shaped that you didn't have a seam in the nylon. So, and I couldn't see where you folded that over the bow with your stitching, because you seem to have a single stitching line going the length of it, but then there seemed to be some dark areas about 6 inches out from that. And was that just a way of cinching it tighter? And
that's right. Yeah.
A secondary stitch that just pulled it tight.
I on the first one, I did it more difficult than I had to. I really didn't want to have any stitching on the outside of the stem and the sterns, just on the inside. So that made it, that's one of the reasons why there was so many wrinkles in the top. The second one, I think I called Harvey after that and said, hey, is there an easy way? And he said, yeah, you can stitch on the outside of the stem and the stern. And so there's just one seam other than the combing. In my kayak. I've only built one model. Harvey, you've built over 100, is that right?
Yes, yeah. The animal skins will conform to complex shapes a lot easier than nylon or any synthetic skin. So there's inevitably a lot more nip and tuck in seizing in with synthetic cloth than an animal's skin.
And then in the inside of the hull, it appeared that you had a flat structure going across, but the bottom of the boat or kayak seemed to come down in a V. So if you were to turn it over, is the bottom of that kayak flat?
On this one, it's completely flat. Yeah,
it is.
Yeah, which makes it much more stable too. Again, Harvey, you can talk better to it, but there's a primary stability and secondary stability, and some boats are not very stable, and the faster the boat, the less stable it is, I'm guessing.
Generally speaking, yeah.
Yeah.
Right, because the movement helps you stay upright, like riding a bicycle. If you stop pedaling, you fall over.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Which I love stopping pedaling in this kayak. I have to tell you, it's one of the few wonderful experiences on the water, particularly if you bring a little cooler inside the kayak with you. Good times.
Right. Well, I'll let someone else ask some questions and come back later, so I don't hold up.
Thank you,
It's
Chester.
very interesting.
And thank you, Harvey, for being here.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
In the middle of your research.
And next we will go to Simon Coldrick.
Simon.
Hello. Hello, hello.
Ça va, Simon?
Ça va, ça va. Slightly extending from Chester's point, actually, I was interested in the spacers and whether you were creating sort of a swim on the bottom of the boat. And more a question for Harvey. How does a swim on a kayak affect the kayak as opposed to a flat bottomed?
I'm not sure what you mean by a swim.
I may be using the wrong word. I think that's used on boats in the UK, where the curvature on the keel.
Oh, like the fore and aft rocker.
Yeah.
The rocker.
Yes.
Yes. The more rockered a kayak is, which is essentially the how deeply curved the keel is. If it's greatly curved, it'll turn very easily.
Right.
If it's generally straight, the kayak will go straighter, and it will take a bit more effort to turn it. So it's a compromise factor, whether you want more maneuverability in a vessel or you want it to track straighter, which can be handy when you're trying to go fast in a certain direction, and to counteract crosswinds or cross currents. I'm not sure if that answered your question.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh.
So Rusty, going back to yours.
Yes.
Obviously, when you put that keel in, it was quite sort of angular and sharp, if you like, underneath. Did you actually smooth all those lines before skinning it?
Yeah. I figured keeping sharp corners might not be good for the for the nylon, but again, Harvey, I don't know if it was you or Brian who said that once you put the skin on and you put the polyurethane, it becomes almost indestructible. As in, it takes quite a bit of force for that.
Something you've got to be hyper fussy about in that type of build.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. Have you tested how much force it can take?
Yes. It's pretty darn hard to drive a flathead screwdriver through it. Yeah, I've reskinned a couple kayaks. So
what's the junker rating of that?
Yeah, I don't know, but when you have a kayak with an old skin or you want to make some adjustments on the frame, you take the skin off. But naturally, that's a perfect time to test how durable it is. So yeah, you can take a hammer and just wail on it without causing serious damage to the skin.
What about going through rapids? Would you be concerned?
If you hit a large rock with the full force of the kayak, you might get some structural damage. If it's a sharp rock, you might get a hole in the kayak, but it depends on how well it's structured. They're very resistant to damage. I've had them fall off my car on the freeway, frankly, and they've been okay.
I can see that happening too.
Yeah, I hate to see it happen, but
yeah. When we strap our kayaks to the car, Harvey uses much thinner straps than I do.
I use dental floss.
Sorry, Simon, did we answer your question?
Yeah, that's lovely. Thank you very much.
Yeah. This might be a good time for me to ask Harvey a question. You've taken a kayak to Greenland, is that right?
Yes. Yeah.
And how did you fit it into your suitcase?
Well, I built the frame, and then I took a razor saw and cut long scarf cuts through the gunnels and the chines and the keels and the long parts, such that the entire frame could be taken apart and put into a box about 4.5 feet long. And I mailed it to Greenland with a bottle of glue, and glued the scarves back together again and had it on the water in I think 3 days. I sent some cloth also so I could sew a skin on. So yeah, you end up making a lot of scarf joints when you're doing replicas, some of which are 28 feet long, and you just can't buy lumber that long. So it's entirely possible just to cut scarves into a completed kayak and put it in a small box and mail it somewhere and put it back together for
A
use.
couple of follow-up questions, if I may. One, why did you do that?
Oh, there was a Greenland National Kayak Championships going on when I was there for research in 2000, and I wanted to do some paddling with Greenlanders while I was there. So it was an opportunity to have a kayak there to use.
And how much alcohol was involved in the decision?
Oh, well, it penciled out that it's a lot cheaper way to get a kayak to Greenland in a small box than a full size. It's
Okay.
it's kind of like traveling with a folding kayak, only there's a bit more work that needs to be done before it's back on the water.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, and next we will go to Ian Lambert.
Hi, I was just really interested to know what your feet rest on once you're inside, and do you have something to push against to help with the effort?
So I put my feet on one of the ribs. In fact, I pre-measured it so the rib would be in the right position for my feet. The kayaks that Brian Schultz of Cape Falcon Kayaks, the ones that he teaches, he actually installs many more comfort features, and so there are supports for your feet. You know, those wretchedy things that you can move back and forth for different. Yeah, so he installs them. I mean, his kayaks slicker looking than this one because he's not teaching the easiest one to build, but also I mean, he does a somewhat of a different approach. So the ribs are steam band, there's the supports for this, for the back. He adds color to the kayak sometimes. He uses 2-part polyurethane that's like almost like a polyurethane epoxy mix that has a UV protection. Yeah, I just, when I sat in it before I attached those ribs, I just made sure that they were in the right place for me.
Right.
And so I just push into the ribs, and you can push your knees into this.
Yeah,
Oh
that piece
boy.
you
Yeah,
mentioned.
what's
The messick.
yeah, sorry, the messick. And so it's really much more maneuverable boat because you're really wedged in it.
Right.
And so every motion is kind of better
Transmit.
translated, to the water.
Yeah.
And it goes really fast,
Yeah.
even though it's very stable.
What do they weigh at? Do you know when they finished?
I think mine is like 30 pounds, maybe 32 pounds.
Right.
I can comfortably move it by myself. So I'll take it off the boat and I walk to the water with kayak in one hand. And I put a skirt on sometimes that, covers
Keeps the water out of the
and so I have a pedal in one hand and a kayak in the other hand.
Right.
On the shoulder. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. I look forward to seeing your progress on your kayak, Ian.
Well, I've built a boat.
I'm guessing it's not 30 pounds.
No. It was I don't know, kilograms, about 250 kilograms. I can't remember now.
Yeah, slightly more.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ian. Next, we will go to Phil Smith.
Hey, Phil, how you doing?
Thanks, Rusty.
Pleasure.
Good. Well done on your successful construction. Thanks, Harvey, for joining us to back Rusty up. We've already covered a part of my question because I've used a number of kayaks, but always glass fiber or rotor molded. So the durability of skin-on frames, I came back in when I know you were discussing that. It worries me, but okay, I will take that as a positive and take it away. But Rusty and maybe Harvey, how does the performance of that, I guess, easy to build kayak compared to others you've tried? I mean, Rusty, have you been in other kayaks?
I have, yeah. So I've never taken this kayak to the salt water. So I'm guessing in the salt water it would be a little bit more difficult because it's short. But on the flat water, I enjoy it better than fiberglass kayaks. It's more maneuverable. It's faster. Yeah. I haven't taken it to whitewater, but I've never done whitewater in a fiberglass kayak either. Harvey, what do you think? So specifically this kayak, yeah? Because
Yeah,
again,
it's a little hard to compare the two unless you have the exact same design made out of both materials. Each would have their own advantages. The advantage of a rotomolded or a fiberglass is that you don't have any internal structure, so it's easier to load the pack. The weight difference is going to be a lot heavier for fiberglass and even heavier yet for rotomolded.
Definitely rotomolded, yeah.
But other than that,
no, but sorry. So to clarify, it was more the design. So I've used production boats that exist in glass and plastic, but just wondering how that design, very flat bottoms.
Oh yes, yeah.
A shortish, wideish, I guess, sea kayak if it's a Greenland kayak, how it compares to others, because that flat bottom perplexes me. But
oh yeah, yeah. It's going to feel very stable initially, and it is inherently a slower design, but it's still very light and agile, especially at its shorter length than most sea kayaks. Yeah, it's just a very different feel, the shape, but I don't think it's particularly detrimental or anything. It would be inherently just a little slower, but a little bit more comfortable, stability wise as well. So every kayak design is a compromise of many different factors. So but yeah, it would feel different.
Could it be the surf ski we haven't tried yet?
I have never been in a surf ski, but I've paddled some pretty narrow traditional designs with deep parabolic curved bottoms that are very unstable. The narrowest kayak I paddled was 15 inches wide, which I don't think you can even buy a kayak that narrow. But
no, I wasn't. It doesn't sound like me either. No, I was thinking of dedicated wide, short sit-on surf skis. I mean, the flat bottom for that might make it.
Yeah, I haven't been on any of those yet. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Harvey, can I ask you a follow-up?
Sure.
Would you have reservations finding and building a design specifically for a sea kayak versus buying a longer sea kayak?
I'm not sure what you mean.
So if you wanted to have a kayak to go on the sea, would you have reservations building a replica of a traditional kayak for that skin and frame?
Not at all. Not at all. In fact, there's a lineage of British sea kayaks that directly go back to a Greenland kayak that was collected in Illorssuit, Greenland in 1959, that they pretty much started making fiberglass copies of. So it's very much a native design. The Anisakuta, the Pintail, and a few others I think are based on this design. The original is at Kelvin Grove Museum in Glasgow.
Okay.
But yeah, they Duncan Winning measured it and handed drawings around the sea kayak community in the 1960s, and they started turning up out of fiberglass, and they still make them today, I believe. So, and that's a very direct lineage to a traditional Greenlandic hunting kayak.
I don't own a boat. I'm interested, but yeah, I live in Glasgow, so
next
time I'm touring visitors through the museum, I'll look out for that. Okay. Good.
Oh yes, yeah, great, super, yeah.
But you knew that, Harvey, right?
Yeah. Well, I actually have a replica of it featured on my webpage. So you'd find it there.
Okay.
As well, and drawings of it.
I'll look there, then I'll know what to look out for. Okay. Okay. Perhaps let's move on.
Thank you very much, Phil.
On to the next one. Thank you both.
And next
Okay.
on to Anton.
Hi guys, hi Rusty. Great talk and great for you to bring Harvey along, which gives a lot of additional insight too.
You don't even know how hard it was to do that. I had to get COVID to postpone the talk because Harvey couldn't be here 2 weeks ago. But I'm glad you appreciate my efforts.
Yeah, fake it till you make it. Yeah. Now, I was just wondering, you were mentioning that you did screw your kayak together opposed to using nails, and I was just wondering if you had any issue with this, with screws snapping or something, because I can imagine there's quite some movement in a kayak's construction. And
No,
you
this
find
is probably the only woodworking skill I had at that point, which was to pre-drill before I put the screw in, and that was it. I
but
just
they
used
didn't
the
cause
inch.
any issues so far, like snapping or stuff like
Nope.
this.
No, I used deck
Okay.
screws that are like 1.25 inches. The pine is 3/4 of an inch, and so I did some calculations and figured 1.25 inch screws. That's, again, we're talking about very little woodworking information that I had at the time. I've never cut any joinery, and so yeah, no, there were no issues at all. There's one screw
Okay.
that goes into every joint.
Yeah, but I was just wondering because screws are just not moving with the wood like nails are. So this is an issue for this kind of construction because of course it's a lot easier to screw it than to nail it.
Right. I think this really goes to the very center of this presentation. Don't overthink it. Just go, and this is what Harvey told me. He said, just don't worry about it. Just go ahead and do
I
this.
don't worry about any of my woodworking, but I don't
Oh,
have
I disagree.
I don't have to float on water in it. So.
I helped you build a spoke shape. I know how much you worry about your woodworking. You are very much a perfectionist, but yeah, no, this is very much a audacity of the beginner's mind. Yeah, no, I'm guessing it's white pine, so maybe because of that it's more stable, but I really don't know.
Okay, thanks.
Sure.
Thanks, Anton. And next we'll go on to Andy Brown.
How's it going, Andy?
Hi, Rusty. Absolutely brilliant.
Thank you, mate.
10 out of 10 for your confidence in presentation, mate. That was lovely.
Well, I do that for a living, right?
Right.
Just not about woodworking.
No, so yeah, thank you. And Harvey. Not only a brilliant presentation, but you got the backup of a world-renowned expert as well. I mean,
I know.
where's this lot going? So just a simple question, which I think I've more or less just answered by myself because I've just found, I think, a canoe that I've got. But I was wondering, so is this as simple as it gets?
In terms of
Construction, would you be able? What's the quickest shortcut to getting on the water?
Okay, so I'm gonna answer that first, and then Harvey is gonna tell me that I'm wrong because he's built like floating tubs that go by a French name, but he'll tell you about this. I have since bought a course from Brian Schultz of building canoes, and he's got a specific system where you build canoes without the center stretcher, so you can actually nest them one inside the other. And then you can put two together and like a catamaran and add sails to it. And he's got the one that you could put pedals to, so you can pedal with your feet and then fish at the same time. And I've watched those videos. A friend of mine bought the videos for his kayak building course. And I can confidently tell you that this kayak is much simpler to build than what Brian is teaching. I think it is the simplest one it gets. But now Harvey can tell you that I'm wrong. Harvey, you can take a bathtub in the water.
Yeah, well, actually, I would say that is probably one of the easiest designs. You could literally go into a molding shop and buy pre-milled laths, and just with a saw and a box of nails, put that kayak together, in a couple days. It's a design that I wish I had started out with, because I started out with something a lot more complex. And like Rusty, I started out, my first kayak, I had never built anything out of wood before. Unlike Rusty, I had never even been in a kayak before, so I literally did not know anything about what I was doing. And but yeah, that is a very simple design. It's
I thought coracle would be easier.
Oh, the coracle, yeah, there's bending involved, which adds
But you
another
just
layer.
take willow branches and that's it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, you can take willow, just green bend it. Yeah, coracle would be pretty darn easy as well. Not the same performance though as a
Yeah,
kayak,
for sure.
though.
Andy, have you ever seen a coracle?
Yes. I've not got a full size one. I've got
Mm.
one that big.
Okay, yeah.
And I've got another one this big, which
Okay.
I shall, if I can, I shall get it out and show you.
Those are funny looking thing. I've seen Harvey's kid in one of those, and it didn't look like it's gonna go well.
Yeah.
Nobody died.
Yeah, they're a lot of fun to use, the coracles there. Yeah.
How
I've
would you
got-
describe it to
Me?
somebody, yeah, who has never
Oh.
seen one?
Gosh, it's essentially, it's a small basket that you sit in the middle of. They exist all around the world. They're most famous from Wales and Ireland.
Yeah, the Irish.
Yeah, but yeah, they're simple, light, very portable boats, and they were used for tending salmon nets on swift-moving streams. And they're extremely maneuverable, and they handle class 1, class 2 whitewater very well.
Basically a soup bowl with the soup on the outside.
That's exactly it.
Exactly. Yes.
That's exactly it.
Yeah,
Is
thank
there-
you.
Is there a reason you use nylon versus cotton, or is there a strength issue there? Just only because I know that I use cotton for canvases, and then when you size it, you put a sizing on it, it shrinks and becomes taut. Does the nylon do that same thing, or?
Yeah, with the nylon, I sew it on wet, and when it dries, it naturally tightens. But there's also a lot of mechanical stretching. I use my first kayaks were canvas, but I live in a very humid environment, and there's mildew issues. It's also a bit heavier than the nylon. It holds water longer. It doesn't dry out as well. Nylon is also translucent, so aesthetically and the long-term durability is a little better with nylon than canvas. From my experience.
Interesting.
You're saying when he's out, we can see Rusty's legs. Isn't that a little saucy?
Well, and Rusty did say that he liked to put on a skirt when he goes out, right? Didn't he?
Not
Yeah,
always,
yeah,
but
true.
I can, yeah.
Occasions.
Okay, so next we will go to Will Graham.
Paul, I don't know if you can see that Matthias has his hand up, and I'm guessing he was the first one to ask a question, or to raise his hand. I could be wrong, but he usually is the first one. Just don't forget him, please.
I'm not going to forget him.
Thank you.
Impossible to forget.
Hi, Harvey.
Hello.
Just a couple of things is when you were talking about the historical context of the indigenous people building these things and the materials, and it kind of tying into one of the things that Rusty talked about when he and his friend kind of built one in, what was it, 24 hours, Rusty?
28, yeah. 14-hour, 14-hour days.
When indigenous peoples took these projects on, because it was a livelihood-based thing historically, was it that quick for them to build it because they could build them? They built them as a matter of course. Were they that fast and efficient?
Probably not in a time frame of 28 hours. There would be a lot of issues with gathering enough materials and the tools to do it. But with all that assembled and all ready to go, it could happen pretty fast. The sewing of a skin on a kayak is a much different thing when you're working with animal skins, and there's also gender breakdowns of who does what work. Women would do all the sewing on a skin, and that could take probably up to 8 hours with 5 or 6 or 7 women sewing at once. But the actual construction of the frame could happen in, I don't think within a week is unreasonable, in at least recent years where they have access to European tools and even lumber.
And so the other thing I was wondering is both in the historical and I guess in the modern case, is how long do these things typically can they last?
That's a good question. That depends on just general wear and tear and the type of use it's done. One interesting thing about these kayaks that a lot of people don't keep in mind when they're building modern versions is that every single year the Inuit hunters would take the skins off and replace them. So every year you would have access to do repairs inside the kayak, make modifications, switch out broken pieces. So technically, it's kind of like the ship of Theseus. How old is a kayak if every part's been replaced over the last 40 years? But you read some ethnological texts, and they say a frame can last up to 10 years, but pieces are switched in and out regularly as needed. So it's hard to put a number on how long a kayak frame will last. But when we build with nylon, modern people, we have to consider that we need to make them a bit stronger because because we won't be taking it off every year to repair things that would naturally break. Also, animal skins can be they can exert a force on the kayak as the humidity and temperature cycles and destroy the frame. We don't have that problem because we're not using animal skins, but that is a consideration the original builders would have had as well.
It would sort of be like over the winter they would repair the kayaks, and over the summer they would repair the dog sleds.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
It's cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much. Well, and last but not least, we will go to Matthias.
Thank you. Only fair that I get to go last from time to other. Anyway, I was wondering two things. One, firstly, the on a traditional kayak covered with animal skins, how do you waterproof the hide, and how in particular do you seal all the stitching holes? Because I mean, they are holes you are punching a hole through, and even if you're pulling things tight, water will make its way wherever it can.
Yes. That's a very good question.
I'm so glad you answered that, Harvey, because I have no clue.
Yeah, well, having made one out of deer skin, I've certainly. But when you sew through the nylon, you put the needle all the way through, and then back in, so you have two holes. When you sew in skin, you can go part way in with the needle and then come back out without even making a hole on the outside.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so they blind stitch as much of the seams as possible.
Okay.
There, of course, is an opening, through the two folds, but they're often lapped and then blind stitched together with two passes of stitching. They would have to oil the skin entirely because it's a rawhide. If you put an untreated rawhide on the water, it'll soak up water and you get this big flappy skin.
Exactly.
Yeah. So what they have to continuously oil the skins, and also in seams and where there are holes, you can rub in a thickened seal grease mixed with minerals or other materials to caulk the seams essentially. So between the blind stitching and continuously oiling them, they were rendered pretty darn waterproof.
I can imagine. So when you say oil, that would be some form of what, rendered blubber or?
Exactly. Yeah. It would be grease from seal or whale, caribou fat, even fish fat was even used. Just to keep the skins from just drying out completely.
Yeah. So one of those kayaks would be stinking to high heaven, or?
Yes, in fact, yeah. There's actually Yeah, the newer ones I've seen in museums, you can still smell the smell that. And there's a museum in Holland that has they order seal fat from Greenland every once in a while to recoat some of their older kayaks, so they maintain them in a traditional way. And my God, the smell!
Do you know where in Holland?
It's the museum in The Hague.
Okay.
Yeah, they have some kayaks from the 1930s that I think they still maintain with fresh coats of seal oil now and then.
Yeah. The other question I was also wondering, particularly a longer seagoing kayak, to what extent is it stiff in the length, and to what extent does it, as it were, flex with the waves as it goes over and through them?
No, that's another great question. Some of them are pretty stiff. You don't feel much flexation as you're going over waves. You can feel some resiliency, and the skin has a natural resiliency, even the nylon covered ones.
Yeah.
There are kayaks from the Aleutian Islands, the Unangan, that are designed with jointed frames such that they do flex over waves. And if you paddle a replica of one of those, you can feel it kind of interacting with the waves less like a rigid stick and more like a piece of floating rope. So you can feel a lot of movement in those types of kayaks. So it's pretty much dependent on how it's built and how it's intended to interact with waves. But the range of flexibility is considerable.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much.
No, thank you.
And thank you, Rusty, and thank you, Harvey. Fantastic presentation.
Thank you. I can listen to Harvey talk about kayaks almost as much as I can listen to him talking about pickled smelt drinks.
And we'll go back to Phil Smith.
Oh, good. You found me. Thank you. Yeah. Just a question for Rusty and Harvey again. It picks up on, we were discussing Rusty's skirt earlier, and also Matthias's discussion of animal skins just now and the smell. Rusty, what do you actually have a spray deck, a spray skirt to fit your kayak? And then maybe one for Harvey. What would kayak wear be for traditional Alaskan, Inuit, Greenland? What would that be? Would you be putting something around you that is attached to the kayak, or would you be wearing something which you can then attach to the kayak to keep the spray out?
Harvey, why don't you go first?
Rusty,
sure. Yeah. Spray skirts are very much part of the kayak tradition, all the way from the Aleutian Islands all the way to East Greenland. Many of the spray skirts in Alaska were made from the intestines sewn together, the intestines from sea mammals or bears. In Greenland, the spray skirts were typically made out of seal skin, so the leather of a seal. They also had full paddling jackets made out of the same materials, so it would be a hood, seal around your wrists, and then around the kayak combing. So just a one-piece spray skirt that is full clothing, and that would keep wind and waves and water out of your kayak. Yeah, the paddling jackets and spray skirts were very much a part of the traditional kayaking.
Absolutely. So how would that be attached then? Would you spend time ashore almost stitching yourself into your boat, or is it a?
They would be tied with yeah, they had a tight line in the hem that could be tightened around the combing, and there's a lot of friction with the seal skin to hold it on. Also, sometimes they would attach the spray skirts more permanently, and they just climb in through the spray skirt and then tie it around their waist.
Right.
There's an old Aleutian kayak from the 1820s in a museum in Finland that still has the gut skin spray skirt attached to it. But mostly it would be something you would wear and then tie around the cockpit rim.
Okay, good. 2 ways. Nothing you've just described smells any better than what you described before, by the way. Their intestines and whale pieces.
to answer your question to me, Phil, and then I have a follow-up question for Harvey. I bought whatever the cheapest spray skirt I could find, and it also has a string in the hem, and so you put it around the combing and just tighten it. And
You can argue made have elastic nowadays. You're okay.
yeah, that's same
no
thing.
intestines.
Mine comes with
But
the drawstring. Yeah.
But what did you get to? Because you still got a square combing there, haven't you?
Yeah, but
So what
it
did you
works
put in?
it works well. It just covers around. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it works. Harvey, if I may, follow-up question for you. You have rolled the kayak in the Arctic water, right?
Yes, yes.
What does that feel like?
It's perfectly fine the first time. But the second time it feels like you get hit in the head with a sledgehammer. And this was rolling in like 33-degree water in Greenland, wearing a full paddling jacket, so just this much of my face was exposed, and it was extremely painful, just instant ice cream headache. But strangely, the very first roll you don't feel at all, but the second one is like getting hit with a truck. It's it's difficult, it's debilitating, it's not as pleasant as warm water kayak rolling, but it's all the more important though to roll in those conditions, because you don't want to come out of your kayak in 33-degree water. A guy like me would scarcely have 10 minutes of life.
But if I remember correctly, Inuits don't experience that.
That's right. Yeah, I don't know. This probably needs some serious fact checking, but I understand that they have different sinuses that preempt them from being susceptible to ice cream headaches.
I remember you told me that the first time, and it just blew my mind.
Yeah, I think it's one of several physiological adaptations to life in extremely cold climates, and it's just a natural adaptation.
So Inuits can eat ice cream really fast.
Yes, I know. It should be the envy of everyone. Yeah.
I guess that life is not without benefits.
Yeah.
You live around smelly kayaks, but you get to eat ice cream fast.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Good times.
We may have similar stuff in the Alps, because I always read about ice cream headaches, and never in my life have I experienced it. And I don't
but
know
Anton, you never had ice cream.
No, we just lick icicles.
Mm-hmm.
See, Anton lives in Vienna. They don't have ice cream in Vienna.
Oh, yeah.
It's only champagne.
And
Champagne and
oysters,
schnitzel.
oysters.
Yeah.
Andy,
Is there anything else you would like to share?
Andy, did you find your models, Andy? You did.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to see them now, or do it afterwards.
Sure. You said coracle models, please.
Yeah. Yeah. So here's the.
Oh wow! Oh, that's beautiful. Very nice.
That's gorgeous.
That is.
So it's got a calico skin that's been.
Wow.
Well, I assume it's black tar. Well, it's not black tar. It's a bitumen. Looks like a bitumen paint. Let's try and do that. So it's even got the carrying strap. A bit short, I think. I think that should be a bit bigger, because you wore it over the shoulders, I think.
Right.
I thought you just wear it over your forehead. I could be wrong.
No, shoulders is the one I've seen.
Okay.
But there's a little priest in there as well for when he's doing his fishing.
Oh.
Yeah. This book shows the. It's about corals. It shows a man carrying one with the cross strap across his chest. So
yeah,
it's a bit illuminated by that. Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, actually, that's the same picture, I believe, that's in one of the very first books I bought. Getting into crafts and things like this was Traditional Country Crafts by Grant Jenkins.
Yeah. That's whose book this is. Yes.
Yeah. It's quite phenomenal. And it did come with an oar.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful.
So, but the other one might be in this box here, but I'm not going in there tonight. But that one is literally only that big, and that is proper tourist. Now, I assume this is a tourist gift as well, but I mean, obviously, I get the impression that whoever was making these made full-size ones as well, because the detailing is well, I'm assuming it's spot on.
That's a beautiful model of one. Yes, yeah. I have a small tourist one too, about a little bigger than a walnut shell. But that one is stunning. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's very rustic. Just in, there's no tarting up.
There's an interesting thing about coracles is that they still use them, and they make them out of fiberglass as well. Yeah, if you look up coracle races on YouTube or whatever, they're still quite active in making them, and there's even fiberglass ones, which confounds me, but it's a funny thing. Yeah.
You've got the stitching. Let's bring it a bit closer. There you go. Stitching up here. And I assume it's the same up that side. Yes, there you go. Stitching up there, and then there's another one. Here it is. It goes up here. Oh, there's one at the front. Is that one at the front? No, it's not. It's a rib. And there's another one there. So it's all drawn in. In fact, actually, I'm just looking. Yes, there's pleats inside. So the excess is brought. It's one cloth, and it's brought in. Oh, sorry, it's up here. Brought inside to so you don't need any joint. But yeah, so that's what. So as soon as somebody mentioned coracles, I thought, why didn't I think about that?
Yeah, yeah.
But no, the other thing I've got, which when we said about how simple can you get, so I think I might be moving into canoe now rather than kayak. But asking how simple it can get, does it get more simple than this?
Nice.
I don't know what kind of bark it is.
Is that real bark, Andy? Is it real, or is it almost looks?
Oh, it's real. It's real.
It looks like elm bark.
Yeah. It's right. Okay. And inside it's got some details. Can you see that?
Yeah. Is the front and the back, are they cinched nails as well as the?
Oh, crikey, now you're asking. It's nailed, but I can't see whether it goes round and is. Yes. So there's the. Well, we call it clenched. So it's driven in from the other side and bent over on the back.
Beautiful.
I don't know whether you can make it out there. There's the date inside is 1937.
Wow.
So I'm looking at this picture, and this is all fuzzy. Is it fuzzy for yourselves?
It is.
Can you read that?
Yeah, a little.
Right.
It's fuzzy.
Yeah. Not impressed with the camera on this thing. So, and then it's there. You've got a Z with a Z crossing through it. Then you've got storm clouds and rain coming down. Then there's a teepee. And then, there's a cross frame with something hanging off it, or that's what it looks like. But I assume it was made in some sort of indigenous setup. So, but yes, that's the other thing I've got.
Nice. Thank you.
Thank you. I should say my other half's got it. Bought it to it for a Christmas present last year.
Harvey, you never done the birch bark or elm bark kayak or canoe, have you?
No, never.
That sounds complex.
I'd love to do that someday. But yeah, I've never done that. Yeah. Or carved canoes, dugouts. But
we
in
had
those cases they have to be freshly fallen I mean, you want that bark to be stripped off and wet.
Right.
Last week we had a gentleman from Brazil talk about indigenous woodworking, and he shared a video of one of the tribes building a boat out of bark. I should send it to you. Very interesting.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry I missed your thing, Rusty. I was busy in the shop.
Oh, I thought you were going to tell me you were busy waxing your mustache.
No, I had a bunch of wood I was processing. And
Yeah,
once you get started on that stuff, it goes, and then you got to finish it.
I heard. I think there's going to be a recording, but
Oh yeah, it's recording. I'll have to go back and watch that.
It's worthwhile.
Yeah, the only boat I ever actually made was one to keep the scout leaders busy at one of the competition camps. And it was basically a whole bunch of sticks and string and some plastic tarp. And
that's exactly what I did.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, with screws.
No, this is not exactly what you did. I found some pictures. You want to see it?
I did go to Home Depot though.
I butt in with a comment, Rusty. Not a question, so I haven't put my hand up. I'll wait till Daryl's finished. Sorry.
Oh, nice.
So that's the basic bit of framework we're working on, and I had to keep all the adults busy while the kids did their thing, so I put them to work lashing this with some string, and we started at lunch, just after lunchtime, and at 4:30 we were on the water.
Nice.
I think that answers Phil's question. Is that the easiest way to get on the water? So there you go, Phil.
Yeah, it's really tippy, but really easy.
The easiest way is get other people to build the boat.
That's right.
I'm sorry, my camera's not working, so I'll get it fixed in a minute. But our college in Glasgow joined with Nautical College in Glasgow. And a few years back, they had a competition, and they asked one of the members of our joinery team to build 3 canoes made out of cardboard. So they used cardboard to make canoes, and they tried 3 different methods of waterproofing them. And they were just glued together and all the rest of it, but all 3 floated. I think the polyurethane glue one, which they covered in glue, didn't really last very long in the water. It eventually got wet and kind of folded. But they did one with a kind of resin, and then they did one with a kind of a high-end kind of something from Nautical College, a high-end finish on the outside of it. And both of those, even the resin one, actually went the full distance in the race. They had a race on the River Clyde in Glasgow to see who would. There's a new kind of kayaking bit in Glasgow where you can do like fast water, and the canals as well. So just at the top end of that, there's canals in Glasgow, and they did a race along that. It was like an open day for the college.
Wow.
But it was quite interesting watching them build canoes out of cardboard.
I think if they built a kayak, they could have just covered in press and seal. What do you call that? Plastic wrap. Right, that's what Brian does when he tests a frame. Oh, maybe that was you. Is that
no,
you don't do that.
No.
I've seen somebody do that. Just take a roll of cling
Shrink
wrap.
wrap.
Yeah.
I think I saw that. Maybe it was Kate Falcon doing that with a shrink wrap test.
Yeah. Sorry, Andy, you had a comment?
Oh, yeah, I was just going to say, I mean, it was a lovely talk, and I'm in awe of somebody that starts woodworking by building a boat and trusting his life and his family's life to it. But you do realise, don't you? You've ruined the idea of a series of talks on my first project, because nobody's going to want to see I cut a piece of wood to length and called it a shelf, screwed it to the wall.
So maybe my first serious project.
Yeah, but I've got a suggestion. It strikes me that the lightweight construction of a whole series of jointed ribs covered in cloth, you're getting very close to early aircraft construction. And I think, when you've got tired of going on the water, That should be your next direction of travel, so to speak. That makes me talk.
I would. I think a good intermediary step would be a flying boat.
Yes, now you're talking.
I was so hoping you're going to say musical instrument. I'm not getting off. No, I have a tremendous fear of heights, which is why I rock climb to deal with it. But I'm not at all interested in anything flying. Thank you very much. I will leave that for younger folks like Bruce Chafin.
No.
He's been banging on drums his whole life, and he can build an aircraft.
No.
Thank you.
Dad was an aerodynamicist, so no.
Bruce, I just went to see the Nutcracker, and there was a gentleman who was doing percussion. Reminded me of you. He was really taking pride in his craft.
Oh, good. In Atlanta?
Yeah. You probably know him.
Maybe.
Yeah. Anyhow, gentlemen, I'm sorry, I have to rush soon because I'm leaving in a few hours to go to Colorado.
Okay, well, if I can just say,
Are you going by kayak?
To Rusty, to Harvey, absent friend, and the bench.
Justin,
To the bench.
Absent friends on the bench.
Great talk, Rusty.
Thanks, Rusty. Enjoyed
Thank
that.
you,
even though I
gentlemen.
couldn't see it.
I think the secret to the talks is to just bring somebody who knows what they're talking about and make a fool of yourself. That's it.
I think you both did a brilliant job, and thank you for joining us, Harvey.
Thank you. I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Yeah.